all of this represents how you are designed energetically to show up. Every part of the chart tells a unique story. When you have definition, or when I say by definition, you have those areas of the chart colored up, it represents certain ways of your beingness and what you're here to share. And, I don't want to say strengths and weaknesses, because that's definitely not, it's more like your energetic expression.
Hi, welcome to the Connect with Sheila podcast. I'm an entrepreneur, self-care strategist, and creator of the Seasons self-care app. I'm committed to helping you reconnect to your purpose, elevate your well-being, and to build your version of a happy, successful life. Today is interview day, and I'm really thrilled to have a guest on today to go deeper into some ideas that have really been interesting to me over the last number of years. And we're going to go deeper on human design and gene keys. Khela G is a 6-2 sacral generator spiritual mindset coach that works with entrepreneurs on embodying their human design and gene keys in life and business so they can become a full-blown expression of their truth, gifts, and wisdom in how they show up and serve their people. And I love this quote that she shares. She says, "There's no external formula for your success in life and business. Human design and gene keys simply show you how to go within to find your answers and what works for you." Sheila, I'm so excited that you're here today to talk further about something that has really been interesting to me over the last number of years that I've applied to my life and business as well. I can't wait to see where this conversation goes.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on and sharing such a beautiful introduction. I feel very welcome. So I'm really looking forward to having a beautiful chat with you today for your audience.
Great. And I noticed that you also have a podcast. Is that right? How long have you been podcasting?
Oh my goodness. I've been podcasting for about 4.5 years, and I have over 330 episodes, and I have almost 100 interviews that I've done with people. So it's like near and dear to my heart. I love it so much. It's called Living in Fierce Alignment.
I love that. And to be fiercely aligned is something that can feel so elusive to many people because we can feel so divided, especially because of all of the options available to us now of what we can do and decisions we can make, places we can live, even. And so I feel like having that alignment as a focus in our life is so, so valuable. It's great that you get to lead people in that way. So, how did you get into this line of work? Maybe back up a little and tell me kind of where you got your start and what led you to this place.
Yes. So back in 2014, I was finishing my teaching degree. So I have a Bachelor of Education in Physical Education in French. And I had started to get into the personal development journey. It started with doing landmark worldwide programs, and I did a lot of personal development, even just for myself. And that was my first exposure to coaching. And I really loved it. I thought, oh my gosh, I love these deep questions, like really paying attention to our human behavior, like how we can change our lives through communication. It just really spoke to my soul. And so I graduated a year later. I went to China. I taught for a year. I taught physical education, ESL, like a planning class. And it just wasn't quite speaking to my soul as much as coaching. This was still in my mind. And so in 2016, I moved to Toronto, where I reconnected. I was doing long distance with my now fiance, and I started a personal training business. So I have, this physical education background. I was a varsity athlete in rugby, and I started a personal training business. And in that, and being in Toronto with all the entrepreneurship, the way that I started working with my clients, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can teach you how to back squat, but we need to work on your mindset. Like you're not going to be able to change this behavior unless you work on your mindset. So coaching was coming back into my life in that lens. And it was really in 2019, after I'd continued doing, all my personal development work for, several years at that point, that I started my online coaching business. And from there, it was just, at first it was general, mindset work, showing up, supporting people. But then I found human design in 2021. And that's when I really think my life changed. And I really dove so deep into this work, and it changed how I showed up in business. And I just really realized the gift I have in how I share and interpret this work with others really supports entrepreneurs. And so it's been over 2 years now that I'm using human design and Gene Keys, which I found around the same time, as a tool to support people in being in energetic alignment in their business through their embodiment. So that's kind of my twists and turns. And I went from teaching to coaching, and it was just now I'm really at a place where I'm so passionate about the work that I do, and I really love it.
I love that. And I love how you went from one session to another, but really the foundation of it is very similar, and that's working with people, helping them to improve, helping them to be their best, because isn't that what teaching really is at its core, right? And then personal training, how can you feel your best, and knowing that it all does stem with how we feel about ourselves and what's happening on the inside, both our mind and our body. It's a real connection. It's so funny. I taught ESL in the Czech Republic way back. That was my stint after high school. And so I think it's so interesting. We got a lot of similarities here. And then personal development. I worked for a personal development company. It was one of my first corporate jobs. So there's so much to be said for this path that we get on. And then podcasting, we kind of enter into that realm. It's so fun. And so I would love for you to share, what are what are your main places that you take people on in terms of their journey as they're figuring out what their human design is? Like where does it begin for you? Is it the very starting point of when you're working with someone, or is it first getting to know them a bit and then taking them on that journey?
So I think because I've been talking about human design and Gene Keys now for a couple of years, I noticed that my audience is in a place where they're already familiar with the system. They may not know or be as in depth into it as much as I am, but it's like I'm kind of a couple steps ahead in terms of my contemplation and intimate implementation of it. And so I, right from the get-go, when I work with someone, it's always from a human design lens. And they usually
Okay.
have like at least a basic understanding of their design. But even then, if I back that up, and let's say, we have listeners on here, they don't even know what their human design is. I think the biggest thing when people look this up, you use your birth information, your time, location, your date, I think those three things, where you're born, city, country, and you use this information to look up your human design chart, and it gives you this blueprint on how you're designed to show up and live in your life. And so usually what happens is that people look up their human design and they don't resonate with it right away because they're probably stuck in operating how they think they should be operating. And
Yes.
that in itself is one of the first transitions people need to consider when they discover their human design.
Oh, I so agree. I feel like when I first discovered human design, it was like a deep exhale of, oh, this is why I am the way I am. And I'm meant to be that way, instead of trying to fit myself into a box that often felt uncomfortable. And more people that I've met who are understanding and embracing their human design are feeling the same way. It's like a reclamation of who you really are and a celebration that you get to be that way. And I find that with my close friends and my family, I am able to really accept them more fully for who they are as well, instead of trying to mold them into what I think is, we think about our kids, right? Oh, maybe you need to be more like this. Well, why? You are the way you are. Let's really look at how we can augment who you are instead. So I
Mm.
love that. So we have had someone speaking a few times here about human design on the podcast, but I would love for you to do your description of what human design is for brand new listeners. Maybe take them on that journey of what it could look like for them.
Yes. So the human design system, like I mentioned, is based on your birth information. It's similar to when you look up your natal chart. And so human design was synthesized and created by Ra Uru Hu. And he is the reason that he synthesized these systems together. We have the Kabbalah tree, the astrology, we have I Ching, we have quantum mechanics. Like there's a lot of pieces that have come together to create this body graph. When you look at it, you're going to see all these different shapes. They're connected with channels. There's going to be numbers inside of it. And all of this represents how you are designed energetically to show up. Every part of the chart tells a unique story. When you have definition, or when I say by definition, you have those areas of the chart colored up, it represents certain ways of your beingness and what you're here to share. And, I don't want to say strengths and weaknesses because that's definitely not, it's more like your energetic expression is what it is. And so the reason why this is so beautiful that I love to use as a tool in business, as an example, or you can use it in parenting. I know that you said that that's been incredible for yourself as a mother, is using this as a tool in business, which is what I do with my clients, is that it's like it really cuts the bullshit of not using a cookie cutter approach. Like the way that I would coach you as a 1-3 manifesting generator is not the same as I would coach a 5-1 splenic projector. Like it's very different. Even if you have the same niches and you have the same goals, it would be so different. And I love that this system gets to be a tool to really allow people to be unapologetic. Like you said, that reclamation to show up how they're designed to show up.
Yeah, I imagine again people coming into a coaching container where they really have these goals they want to achieve and they probably so often like all of us come up against the same blocks over and over and then I wonder how much of it is that conditioning of well I'm supposed to do it this way. So if you're able to then be working within that human design that is supposed to feel so natural to you, it starts to come more easily. And this is the thing that's interesting. And it's kind of the mindset work that has been constantly working for me. And that is really dismantling the idea that any kind of success needs to be really hard, be a slog, and it needs to take a long time. But I've found that when I am really operating in my natural energy, things just come. Things come more easily. And things that maybe just don't work, I can recognize it sooner so I can move on from it. Right. It's not saying that, oh, everything's just going to go smooth sailing. If anything, you might come up against some roadblocks right away. But that's when you have the indication that I'm not supposed to go in that direction. That door's closed to me at the moment. And that's okay. There's another door opening somewhere else. So I love that you get to help people honor that without the shame. And, like you mentioned, eliminating self-rejection, right? Like we're so used to maybe feeling like there could be rejection lurking out there. But I think really a lot of the times what I've experienced with some of the people I've worked with is they tend to reject themselves first instead of really embracing who they really are and the magic that they have inside of themselves. And so my question for you now is what have you found to be some of the real aha moments that people that you've worked with have come to realize when they've been working with you? Say when they've been working on a goal for so long, they come to you and they get more clarity. Like what do you find happens for them? If you can think of any examples.
Yes, I think that. So I'll give a little statistics here. In human design, there's 5 different types. Some types are more common than others. For example, generators and manifesting generators make up about 60 to 70% of the population. And what makes them unique to non-sacral beings like projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, the other 3 types, is their sacral center is defined. This energy is very much about your creative energy, your life force energy, your sexual energy. Is when you're doing the things that lights you up, you really have the stamina to just keep going. And so it's interesting because when I look at the world, a lot of people, if you think 60 to 70% of the population are sacral beings, they have this additional energy and drive, but they're not doing the things that lights them up, they're going to be very frustrated. And so what happens is when a sacral being, like you have your center defined and projectors, manifestors, and reflectors don't have the center defined, that means that they amplify the energy of the sacrals, right? So what happens is projectors, manifestors, and reflectors, and I'll use a projector specifically because I've worked with a lot of them, is they start operating like a sacral being. They start taking a lot of action. They're doing the things because they think they should be doing them. They're doing the things that they don't enjoy doing. And they're showing up out of alignment because they're showing up as a generator because they're around people who are not happy with the work that they're doing. And so when I've sat down with projectors and been like, hey, actually, you're not designed to show up this way. These are your gifts. Oh, you feel like resting, or you feel like you want to be more of somebody who has a bird's eye view of what's going on and how you're giving your services. This is why. This is how you're designed to show up. And for them, they finally feel seen. They finally feel recognized. They finally feel like they don't have to prove themselves. They don't have to work themselves like a dog to be acknowledged because that's not how they're designed to show up. Now, I'm not saying that sacral beings work like dogs. I'm saying that sacral beings have that extra creative juice And that's just our gift. It's not a strength, it's not a weakness. And projectors have more of this ability to project and penetrate what it is that they see to guide people. Right. So there's big nuance. That's the other thing with human design. I talk about it from nuance. It's not black and white. And I think that's what gives people the freedom.
Yeah. And I think it's so valuable when you're sharing this. Like I'm envisioning all these examples, in my own life and people that I've seen. And it is so interesting. It's like there's a reverse, right? Everybody's so busy or feeling like they need to be so busy doing all of the things when really, if we all operated from our gifts and from our design, everything would get done and people would be happier getting those things done. So it's a real service you're providing, guiding people back to themselves, really. And so I'd love to really share a little bit more about now gene keys and how did you find them and how do they interplay with human design? Are they at all connected or is it just something that you've decided to put together?
Yes, I love this question. So I shared about how in the human design chart, when you look yours up, you're going to see lots of different shapes. They're interconnected. In these shapes, there are numbers from 1 to 64. These numbers are specifically from the I Ching system, which is an ancient Chinese divination text. And these 64 gates, is what we call them in human design, are the same 64 gene keys that we see in the gene key system, but they both come from the I Ching system. So these 64 numbers, they represent the 64 archetypes of like human expression and experiences and emotions. And so when you look at the human design chart, on the left and right hand side, you're going to see two columns of the symbols, and those symbols are planets. And so your gene keys are essentially 11 of the planets that you would have from your human design chart put into 3 different sequences that explain your energetic journey that you're designed to live and the common energetic and emotional themes that you're going to experience in your life. And so it's not like you start at point A and you get to point B. It's literally a living and breathing experience of common themes that you see in your life. And so it's interesting because with human design, Ra Uru is a founder of human design. Richard Rudd is the creator and founder of the Gene Keys, and he used to work with Ra. So they have like created these systems, right? And they're so beautiful, and I use both of them. And with human design, it's like you use your strategy, you use your authority, and you take action according to if you're a manifestor, a generator, projector, reflector, right? The gene keys are more contemplative. They're more meditative. You more witness if, turbulence or if, integrity, if these things are showing up in your life, like what is happening in your life. It's a very curious, gentle, and just contemplative approach, like meditative, the way that you witness these show up in your life that match the themes of the different sequences in the gene keys. So I hope that kind of clears things up. I feel like I saw you nodding, like, oh, I think I see, I get it. So I'm curious how that resonates.
It does. And as I've looked at human design, I know then there's like the numbers on your human design chart and the gates. So the gates are really what the gene keys are then.
Yes, and
Okay,
vice versa.
excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I have had an understanding of what gene keys are. I've never really gone deep into it because I love that you say it's like almost like the contemplative. I love that and meditative. It's something that we can kind of just spend some time easing ourselves into. And what kind of resources do you recommend people look at in order to learn more about that, to dive in with their different gates, what their gene keys are to correspond with their human design?
Yes. You can look up your Gene Keys chart at the Gene Keys website. So genekeys.com. You can do a free profile. There's a ton of free resources there. If you're an entrepreneur, I also have a ton of resources that specifically speak to entrepreneurship and Gene Keys. And we'll definitely have those links in the show notes to support people. And we talked about my podcast earlier. I have a ton of episodes about the Gene Keys and business on there as well. So there's definitely, if you're hearing this and you're like, oh my God, I'm so curious, welcome to your new rabbit hole.
Oh,
Because
seriously?
oh yes. And you said it. You're like, I'm a 1-3 Kayla. If I get into this, I'm just gonna go so deep. Yes. Yes. This is your
Yes.
everyone's new rabbit hole if you don't know what this is.
Well, and this is why I really appreciate things like this. Like I was saying to you before we hit record, what I love about the podcast is I get to have people coming in, sharing their stories, sharing about new resources and new ideas and new technologies that I totally could go down the rabbit hole constantly and then never really, come out of. And so this allows me to get a taste of everything and then go deep where I really want to. And so, yes, we'll be definitely diving into your podcast for sure, because that's why I love podcasts. You can multitask, you can be on a walk and listen. And I find that's often the most powerful way for me to listen to podcasts actually is when I'm on a walk out in nature, because I'm not distracted. I'm really supported as I'm learning something new, and I can be contemplative on my walk while listening to something purposeful. And so I think actually I'd love to take a poll of my listeners to see how they do it. So if you're listening, shout me out, do a DM, let me know. I want to know, where do you listen to this? Where do you listen to your podcast? Are you doing dishes? Are you driving? Are you walking? I'd be so interested to know. So fantastic. I'm loving this conversation. And so I would love for you to share kind of what is coming up for you now. What are some of the things that you're working on, that offerings or ways that you're supporting people right now?
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. I think that one thing that I've really progressed to as I've learned more about human design and the gene keys, and I've really implemented this into my business, and I've had like hundreds of conversations and sessions with people, is I'm really excited right now to work longer term with clients one-on-one, supporting them in their embodiment and bringing this work into their business. And also even just working with teams and CEOs, like you were talking about earlier, what that would look like if everyone could be happy and thriving. And if you're just actually living according to your design, like how much better that would make the world. My fiance, he's a projector and he works in the corporate space. And I've been, even though his whole corporate world doesn't know about human design, it's like, well, here's how you can embody it. And now he's thriving and he gets to make that impact. So I work in that kind of environment as well. And I also have a program right now called Hypnotic Keys. So where I bring the gene keys and hypnosis together for hypnotherapists. So those are my main sort of playgrounds. And then I have a beautiful resource, the Gene Keys Business Guide for business owners who want to bring the gene keys into their business. It's a personalized guide for them. So these are my projects and the things that I have going on right now that are like super just lighting me up, the way that I get to connect with people.
That is so amazing. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I imagine coming into a workplace, whether it's virtually remote around the world or if it's in person, for people to have that understanding of how they operate best, how to work with teams, how to assemble teams, and then how to best put your projects together, right? Like in terms of project management, who to put on what task. There's just so much value in knowing these things. And I'm kind of wondering, so my husband's a projector and I'm a manifesting generator. And I'm really wondering, is there something to this, like projectors and some kind of generator being attracted to each other? Like, is this a thing? I'm seeing this become a trend.
I think it can be. I mean, obviously you're not always going to see opposites attract, but I think what happens is that we complement each other. Like I'm speaking
Yeah.
for myself, my fiance being a 6'3" splenic projector, and it's like obviously I have my sacral defined, he doesn't, so it creates this rhythm and this flow in the way that we live our life and create our life together. So it could be, but I think it's not like zodiac signs where it's like, oh, like this sign and this sign are like magic and these ones are explosive. Like I definitely don't use human design in that context, but I know that some people have.
That's so fun. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, obviously we're all going to be a little different. And the thing is, there's so many layers. There's like the basic things. But I think what I love so much about the human design, system is, yourself and you're not self. And so what are those things that really differentiate where you're at? And so that's an indication sometimes for me, for my own self-reflection, like, ooh, I'm feeling really frustrated right now. Okay, what is triggering this frustration? What do I need to shift? Instead of just, oh, I'm frustrated. And certainly there is something about just we're human in this life we're living. We're on this human journey where there's, crazy things happening all the time. So we can allow ourselves to be frustrated, and then 90 seconds later, maybe it will pass. But to have a deeper look at why is sometimes very helpful. So that's awesome. And so you mentioned like this work is lighting you up so much. I would love to know, what is the self-care practice in this season of life you're in that is lighting you up the most?
I love this question. It's funny because this morning I literally did a podcast episode. Now we're doing another interview right now. And I shared the similar thing where I really had this breakthrough even yesterday where I was like, okay, when it comes to business, practicing the self-care where I can trust myself, honor myself, like believing in myself. That's been a really big thing. But the breakthrough yesterday was, Kayla, are you taking yourself seriously? And it's not like serious, like work hard, grind to the bone. It's not that. It's like, are you really going after what it is that you want? Are you really positioning yourself as someone that can support other people? And so, what that looks like for me, that self care is like setting boundaries and saying no to things that are a no for me, not being a people pleaser, and really using my communication from a place of love, not that, oh, this is a no for me. Like, you owe me this, I owe you that. It's just like, no, like, I'm taking myself seriously. This is what I want. This is what I think we can do together. And so that's been really interesting. I've never had that flavor come up of like, are you taking yourself seriously? Like, are you really living life to the fullest? Like, so that's really alive for me right now. And that's what's coming up.
I think it's amazing that you are so early on your journey experiencing this and having these realizations. Because certainly in the many years that I've been just doing different kinds of work, it is like you're peeling back layers of yourself to get back to who you really are at your core. Like that little girl, at her truest essence that lives inside of us always. And so I love this. And I love seeing just this trend of people in different demographics who are really embracing that, and how your work and your life can really support that. I love though that this is the self-care that you're talking about, because so often people do kind of think of self-care as just like a pampering type of situation. And I mean, hey, it's wonderful. We got to do, those things too. It's fabulous. But the truest self-care is that real connection to self and to your purpose. So I love that you're doing that. I really honor that. This has been so wonderful. I'm so grateful to have met you. And I look forward to staying in touch and perhaps having future conversations. Human design is something that I'm very attracted to in terms of, sharing it with my people as well, which is why I wanted to have you on today. So thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. And I loved our conversation was so gracious and we touched on so many different things. And it was really a great opportunity for me to share. So thank you for allowing me to contribute to you and your audience.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you. So, listeners, if you got something valuable from this episode, I just want to say, please remember to share it. And I really hope that as you are listening, that you maybe even go back and listen again to take some notes on some of those things that come up for you around the way you show up in your life and business, and go snag some of those things that Kayla was talking about that are in the show notes in order to look more deeply at how human design and gene keys can positively impact your personal life, your family life, your business or career life. There's so much goodness that you can have as a result of that. And so I'm so grateful that you're listening, and I look forward to seeing you on another episode. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Big blessings.